There are two basic choices on electric propulsion. You can go with DC or AC. Both have pros and both have cons. Let's talk about them. Starting with DC, direct current. DC is your Thomas Edison, right? Direct current, if you know anything about the history between Edison and Tesla. The DC motors have been around a long time. They're incredibly reliable. They're what we call torque monsters. So at low RPMs, they take and produce just phenomenal amounts of torque. The Zombie here, running a pair of 11-inch DC motors, produces over 1,800 foot-pounds of torque. It's kind of crazy. But there's two major negatives to DC motors. Actually, three. Two big ones and one half, right? One, DC motors are brushed, meaning there are brushes that physically rub and contact the armature of the motor for the power to be converted into propulsion. So that means there is a little bit of brush dust, very similar to brake dust. Not quite as prevalent, but very similar. If you touched it and saw it, you would believe it was brake dust, which means that there is wear. Now, the rate of wear is dependent upon how you drive the vehicle, how often and how much you race it, etc., versus just street driving it. We have set all kinds of world records with the Zombie, raced it numerous times, half-mile runs, mile runs. I've given so many customer rides, it's mind-boggling, and we're still on our first set of brushes. I wouldn't let the need to change brushes necessarily dictate your choice on that technology. The second issue, a bit more relevant, right? RPM. DC motors are torque monsters, but only up to a certain point, okay? Then the motor begins to actually try to become a generator. And what happens is you see that the horsepower and torque curves begin to drop off pretty quickly. So for example, this guy will just literally throw you back and rip your face off up to about, let's say, 2,800 RPMs. Then after that, it's still a very powerful car. You get up to 3,400 RPMs, and it's just normal acceleration. And frankly, when you get to 5,000 RPMs, you're not really getting that much out of this car. Its red line is like, I believe, 5,500 RPMs. Now we're running 11-inch DC motors. The smaller the DC motor, the higher it can rev. But you still have this same characteristic of what I'd like to think of as relatively limited top RPM speed with a rapid diminishing drop-off as you approach that. But at the low numbers, insane horsepower and torque. The other thing with DC motors is it's really not practical to do regen. But let me say something about regen. Frankly, regen is significantly overrated, right? If you're a Tesla owner, which is probably one of the finest cars out there, they're just about the best at everything they do with electric propulsion. If you lived in New York City as a cab driver, you might get 12% of your energy back, stop and start. In normal daily commute, it's almost statistically insignificant, but it's a great marketing tool. So don't let lack of regen be the driver between your choice of AC and DC. Now let's talk about AC as opposed to DC. So DC, low RPMs, monstrous torque, drops off at the higher RPMs. AC motors, not as torquey, but they have a more linear power curve or a flatter power curve, so they produce the power and the horsepower and torque at much, much longer ranges through the RPM band, and they go much higher in RPM. There are some of the AC motors that we've looked at and we've used that have the ability to produce 10,000 RPMs. So now, what's important about that is with the DC motors, if once you get up to about 3,500 RPMs and you want to go faster and faster and you're running without a true transmission, you need to start using overdrives. With AC, you can just continue to accelerate the motor because frankly with 10,000 RPMs in a 1-to-1 drive ratio, your top speeds are still going to be plenty enough for you to go to jail on and scare the hell out of your riders. The other thing about AC is that it is brushless, so there's no moving contact parts that will generate dust, so it's a cleaner solution, and it has regen. And as I mentioned earlier, whatever, that's nice. I wouldn't let that make my decision. However, now here's the biggest difference among all: price. a DC motor and controller setup compared to an AC motor and inverter setup, and as close to apples as you can get, the AC setup today is going to be about 3 times more expensive than the DC setup. Frankly, if you're looking for a car that's a red light to red light racer, you're going to take it out to the track, do some quarter-mile runs, you want to cruise around and spank people at the red light and take it to car shows, etc., I'd look at DC if you're, budget oriented. If you want essentially as close to a Tesla as you can get in a vintage cool car, and money isn't really the main restrictor for you, then you want to look at AC. We can do either. So I hope that's helped clear it up a little bit. If you have any other questions, just contact us and send them in. We always love answering questions. Thanks.